Now there's a lot of things in this world that are pretty scary. Spiders, working in retail on holiday, maybe lotus pods, or the recent Silent Hill trailers for the poor souls with trypophobia. And if you thought that gaming is a safe space away from all of these scary things, well, I'm afraid to tell you that that is not the case. And some developers, however, don't seem to get the memo about creating a nice relaxing power fantasy and sneak frightening things aplenty into their titles whether you want them to or not. So let's take a look at a few of them. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 scariest hidden encounters in open world games. Number 10. Man-Bat, Batman Arkham Knight. You want a scary open world game? Well, I've got 2 words for you: Man-Bat. The 4th game in the fantastic Arkham franchise, Batman Arkham Knight, sees you as the titular superhero swinging from rooftops to traverse Gotham City once again. Now, most of it is just getting from point A to point B, maybe finding some Riddler trophies and setting yourself up to drop down on some unfortunate goons to hospitalize. But if you play the game and do some rooftop rambling, you may grapple your way up a building and get a face-to-face encounter with the mutated villain Man-Bat. Even after beating the fellow originally named Dr. Kirk Langstrom a few times, curing him of his mutation and imprisoning him in the Gotham Police Department, you can have 2 more similar encounters. The first occurs any time after that, and it will be the Joker's face instead, making it a hallucinogenic nightmare. And the second is if you play the game on Halloween or set the console date to October the 31st. The cutscene of coming face-to-face with Man-Bat will play again, and you can return to the GCPD to learn Man-Bat transformed once more and indeed escaped. Number 9. Mutant Shrimp, Metro Exodus. Now, the first 2 Metro games take place almost entirely within the Metro Underground, a series of subway tunnels and stations linked together under what little remains of the capital city Moscow. Exodus eschews away from this setting to go to the irradiated surface, and one of the surface levels is a village on the Volga River. And that is where we meet our new friend here, and I use that term very loosely, the Czarfish, also called the Water Tsar. Now, lore in the game suggests that it is a giant mutated catfish, though it also has several reptilian and amphibian features. And have you ever played a game where the regular enemies are scarier than the boss enemy? And that's because the Czarfish, the closest thing to a boss in this level, is kinda scary. But even the Czarfish avoids the mutated shrimp, and that's because it's smarter than you. As Artyom, you find yourself on a boat paddling around the Volga, only to be upended by these mutant shrimp who are almost totally immune to bullets and will totally eat you. It never stops being scary, no matter how many times they flip over your boat, which they can and will do more than once. Number 8. Wolf Spiders, Grounded. Grounded is a small game with a novel motif ripped straight out of Rick Moranis' film from 30 years ago, made by the tiny independent studio known as... Wait, Obsidian made this game? Oh, that's right. While most of the studio was working on the fantastic space RPG The Outer Worlds, a small team of about a dozen developers worked on Grounded. Inspired by the films A Bug's Life and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Grounded sees a bunch of teenagers shrunk down to the size of a small insect. They must navigate the now gigantic world that they've lived in and stepped over hundreds of times, thwart an evil corporation, and survive a horde of hostile insects, arachnids, and mind-control bugs. And yes, the arachnids are aplenty here because you have to fight some scary spiders of the orb weaver variety, and that is pretty bad. But the yard you're navigating also has some gigantic, to you at least, wolf spiders. The wolf spiders are extra terrifying because they're stronger, faster, larger, and their bite can cause a poison effect. Oh, and they can also leap out from the grass from beyond, where you can actually see them and land on top of you almost silently. Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Number 7. Stalker Guardians, The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is an amazing game, showcasing just how far a company can take the idea of an open world genre, and we're all hoping that its upcoming sequel, Tears or Tears of the Kingdom, will be even greater. There's plenty of enemies in the world of BOTW and more than enough obstacles and puzzles to get around, but there is one particular enemy that will cause everybody trouble, especially in the early parts of the game, because it has a devastating attack that can one-hit kill low-level links. The Guardians, originally built to help stop Ganon and his minions, have become corrupted by Calamity Ganon's power and are now hostile to our brave green hero. The Stalker Guardians in particular are extra frightening. While there are numerous types of Guardians, Decade, Scouts, Sky Watchers, and Turrets, the Stalker variety is the most troublesome. As long as you're watching out for them, it's not too bad. I mean, they're huge with 8 legs and a glowing body, so they should be easy to spot, but the fact that they wander around the map means that you can stumble onto one of them at random. Now, Link may be silent, but you'll definitely be screaming when this thing puts a beam attack that does 15 hearts of damage right up your rear end. Number 6. The Guardian, The Evil Within 2. As one might expect from a game franchise called The Evil Within, there's some pretty horrifying things to encounter here, from serial killers, reality warping foes, body horror galore, and a Duran Duran cover. And at one point in the game, you'll come across the Guardians, creatures that, regardless regardless of the name, are nothing like the previous entries. The previous entry that we just spoke about in Breath of the Wild. This grotesque abomination of deadliness is comprised of the mutilated corpses and heads of women murdered by one of the villains, the murderous photographer Stefano Valentini. Oh, and this thing also has a huge one-hit kill buzzsaw for a right arm as well. While the first time that you meet the Guardian is designated as a kind of boss battle of sorts, afterwards you can stumble across another one entirely randomly. It's one thing to walk into a boss battle and fight something terrifying, but it's another thing entirely to be trying to sneak around a monster you don't want to fight and rounding a corner to see a buzzsaw-wielding abomination bearing down on you unexpectedly. Number 5. Reaper Leviathan, Subnautica. Subnautica is a beautiful, mostly peaceful romp throughout an underwater world of discovery and adventure. Now I say mostly peaceful because there are a few scary fishies down there waiting to bite your toes off and inflict deadly diseases. And of course you have to deal with the lonely existence of being the only survivor of your crashed spaceship. The creators of Subnautica cited some fairly peaceful inspirations: scuba diving, James Cameron's documentary filmography, and the desire to make a peaceful game in the wake of a lack of progress on fighting school shootings in the United States. Hence why there are almost no weapons in this game, and the major gun you can get is a stasis rifle, not a deadly firearm. But deep in the depths of the underwater world are terrifying creatures that will absolutely kill you. The Reaper Leviathan, for example, has a tendency to remain in the depths, but will sometimes come up towards the surface looking for prey, and just for the record, that prey is you. The extra terrifying part is that they like to sweep in and attack you from behind, gripping you and spinning you around so that the last thing you see in your newly pee-filled scuba suit is their rows of sharp, very sharp teeth. Number 4. Creepers, Minecraft. Similar to the previous entry Subnautica, Minecraft was built with an eye towards pacifism, which, if you know anything about the guy who originally developed the game, is, well, a bit awkward given his public calls to have people who disagree with him shot. But even amongst the voxel-like worlds of mining, building, and exploration, there are a few hazards. Falling in lava, starving, maybe crying yourself to sleep at night because you accidentally hit a wandering sheep with your pickaxe by mistake, but above all that you must deal with are the little green ninja-like monsters called creepers. These things have only two desires in this world: to kill you and to destroy your stuff. Now, while not particularly threatening at a distance where you can see them and pick them off or get around them, they can be very problematic up close. They make no noise as they saunter up to you from behind, until that is they start hissing to let you know that they're about to explode, taking you and a third of your fancy house with it. Number 3. CHIMERA House, Red Dead Redemption 2. There's a long list of possible choices for scary encounters in Red Dead Redemption 2. The Nosferatu-like vampire in Saint Denis that you can find by locating the epicenter of a series of vampire attacks, the serial killer that you can track down that ultimately gets the drop on you, but there's been plenty of videos about these two. So what we're going to do today is talk about something slightly different, and that is the scariest thing that you can come across at the Van Horn trading post, which is CHIMERA House. Now, set in a small idyllic forest clearing is a very nice two-story house. Like many buildings in the game, the doors are locked and inaccessible. However, a second floor window is hanging open, and if you figure out a way to climb just right, you can get onto the porch awning and climb into the window. And if you glance through the window, it's actually difficult to see anything inside. Daytime makes the unlit room darker than the outside, and nighttime, well, it's even darker inside than out. But once you climb in, you can see a gigantic chimera, which the Frankensteinian creator has dubbed Immensa Creatura. Sewn together from the parts of a bear, a boar, a vulture, and a human, amongst other animals, the man-made mutant, as Arthur calls it, is terrifying if you aren't expecting it. And honestly, even if you are, it's still very unnerving indeed. Number 2. Mr. and Mrs. Cutter, OKAMI. OKAMI is a gorgeous game about Japanese mythology, full of lovely visuals, stunning music, and a fair few creepy things. One of these creepy things is the mysterious Cutter house in the bamboo grove known as Taka Pass. When you first approach it, you will see either Mr. or Mrs. Cutter, who are fairly placid-looking old folks. Like many folks in the game, you can approach them and talk to them. However, a slight departure from most conversations is that they instead become quite hostile indeed. Mr. Cutter will chase you quickly with his walking stick after talking about eating you, though honestly his shear-like mustache would actually be a better weapon for him. Mrs. Cutter is equally deranged as she draws a kitchen knife and chases you away with it. The only way to beat them is to wait for nightfall, blow open a hole in their roof, and drag them into the moonlight to start a fight against the evil Tengu. But the first time you come across them, only for them to launch into a violent frenzy, well, it is quite the startling surprise. And number 1, The Winter Lodge, Fable 2. Peter Molyneux, so full of hope and glee and false promises, even with the overblown ego of promising the world, nay, the universe in each of his titles, 2008's Fable 2 still managed to sell millions of copies and earn a place on many greatest game of all time list. Now, within the game, there are 9 demon doors, optional quests revolving around completing a certain task or acquiring a specific item in order to pass through the door and retrieve a special item from the new realm within. And one of these realms is known as the Winter Lodge. Entering the realm, you find yourself on a snowy pathway on an idyllic hamlet. The path is gently lit with flickering lanterns, and at the end is a cozy little cottage. All seems peaceful and nice, right? Well, that is true right up until you enter the house, and with no prior warning, a sharp chord sounds and the whole world flickers into a dark, horrifying realm. Even after you grab the item and leave the now decrepit cottage, the once idyllic scene is replaced by dirt and darkness with oubliettes hanging where the cute lanterns once were. It is chilling. And there we go, my friends. Those were the 10 scariest hidden encounters in open world games. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ, but the O is a 0, or you can swing by Instagram where it's the same handle. Hope to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. As we said before, the world is indeed a very scary place sometimes, but remember, above all else, you can put some good into the world by being a decent human and respecting others as well as yourself. You deserve love, happiness, and success, and so does your neighbor. So go out there with love in your heart instead of hate, and try to build bridges instead of burning them. Because trust me, the only way that we're going to get through this crazy thing called life is together as one. So big love to you. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.